Well, welcome to video number one. We're going to cover, in a couple of videos, we're going to cover custom post types. We're eventually going to get to advanced custom fields and how to integrate those two. But what I wanted to cover in this first video is what is a custom post type, because I kind of struggled with that and when I was first getting started, and how we can use custom post types and custom post type taxonomies in our website to better organize our data here. So essentially what we're going to do is, what is a post, which is kind of a funky question. Why custom post types? And then we're going to jump right into that custom post type plugin. It's the CPT UI plugin. We'll do post type and taxonomies. And then in a subsequent video, we'll tackle advanced custom fields, or ACF. And then we're going to get into the template hierarchy and template files a little bit. It'll be a little bit nerdy at that point, because we need to be able to get those custom fields wherever we happen to have assigned them, whether it was a post or a custom post or a page or whatever, a product if you're using WooCommerce. How do we get that information to show up for our customers, for our clients, for their customers, if you will? So, all right. So I'm going to back up a smidge and just kind of talk about WordPress in general, because I think it'll help us a bit down the road. There's basically four parts to WordPress. Now, in the top left corner, you see the link to, or the URL for upandrunningwp.com. I cannot recommend this series of videos or course or whatever you want to call it enough. David Hayes is the main guy over there at WP Shout is the name of their company, but upandrunningwp.com is the site you want to go to. Just fantastic general beginning developer WordPress training. So if you're looking to get into this stuff and you want to be digging into code and writing PHP and manipulating PHP and manipulating template files, playing in the functions.php file, all that kind of stuff, and a really good explanation of the WordPress template hierarchy, I would recommend jumping over to upandrunningwp.com. Fantastic, great course. So anyway, so we have the WordPress Core, which is what you get when you download WordPress from WordPress.org. We're certainly talking about self-hosted. We're not talking about WordPress.com. So basically, that's what you get. It's kind of the base of how WordPress works. It is the factory, as David explains in Up and Running. So it's basically the thing that churns out your website that shows up for your customers and visitors online. The second piece is the database. The database in a WordPress world is where everything is stored. So your pages and your posts and your products and your users and all the stuff, media files, all those things are stored in the database. So you have a pile of folders and files, and that's kind of what lives on your in the root of your web server, if you will. And then you have a database, and those things interact, and all your content is stored in the database, and then your other stuff is stored in the actual files itself. That's a really general explanation of that. And your posts are in the database as well, and you can see that's highlighted. We're going to talk about posts, of course, a ton. The next thing is your theme. Your theme is the design, the layout, basically everything that you see on the website. If you have a background image, or you have fonts, or you've got pictures moved over here, and you've got parallax styling, all that funky stuff that you see, that's usually contained in a theme. And there's a million themes out there that you can use. We're going to use 2017 today because it's just the most basic theme out there right now. It's not really that basic, but it's written by Automatic, who are the guys that make WordPress. So it's really just kind of a simple, stable theme that is good to use for this kind of a training. And then there are plugins, and plugins are your functionality. So basically, if you have forms, or you're using WooCommerce or some sort of e-commerce platform, there's a million things you can do with plugins that add functionality to your site. You can use something like BuddyPress and make your site look like Facebook, and can be a member site or whatever. There's all kinds of functionality that you can do in plugins. So those are basically the four pieces that I see when you're looking at a WordPress site. All right. So basically, the general question we have today is that we're going to be working on today is what is a post? And if you're very, very new to WordPress and all you know of WordPress is that it's a blogging platform, which is how it started, then a post is just a blog post. So if you're writing a travel blog and you're visiting Denver today and Boulder tomorrow and Fort Collins the next day, you would have a blog entry and a blog post for each of those places that you stop. What's happened in WordPress is that we have pushed the bounds of WordPress and pushed the functionality of WordPress to the nth degree. However, the core of WordPress is still using that term of post. It's just it was a bad decision made back in the beginning, or you can't really fault them back then, but if they had used a different term, it wouldn't be as confusing now. I used to go to the WordPress meetup groups, which I highly recommend, up in Fort Collins or in Boulder, and people would talk about custom post types, and it never clicked in my brain. When I started to realize that, oh, WordPress calls everything a post, including a blog post or a page or actually an image or your users, those are all quote-unquote posts inside of WordPress. The way that the guys at Up and Running explain it is basically, if you think of it as, you use the sentence, a post of type X. So if it's a blog, it's a post of type blog. It's a container that holds that blog post. But if it's a page, the About Us page or the Contact Us page, that's not a blog post. That's a post of type page. And if it's a picture, we use pictures in my training today. It's a picture of a cow or a picture of a cat. That is a post of type image or media. So you can see that, hopefully, you can see that WordPress uses that word post all over the place. So the blog post becomes really confusing. So no longer are we going to really kind of worry about that. It's a post of type blog or a post of type page. In the example that I'm going to use today, we're going to create a post of type pizza. So we're going to have content about a pizza, but it's a custom post type, and it's a post of type pizza. Not a blog, not media, or a page, pizza. Cool. So that, in a quick nutshell, that's what you see on the left-hand side of your brand new like WordPress install. You see posts, media, pages, and comments. Those are all posts of type whatever, media, post of type, comment, whatever it may be. They're all stored as posts inside of WordPress. The custom post type, I use WooCommerce for e-commerce for most of my clients, actually all my clients. So those products are posts of type product. You're probably sick of me saying that by now, or post of type form, or post of type team members. I like to show this example of a particularly demanding but really fun to work on site. Had a ton of post types that you can see there. We have announcements and commentaries and events and profiles and coaching videos, and so none of those things work. As you can imagine, none of those things work as posts. We're going to get into advanced custom fields in a minute, in a couple of videos. So, for a coaching video, the content that you would want in that post, if you will, would be much different than the one for an event. For an event, you need a field for the date, maybe the start date and end date, the location, maybe directions, who's the speaker, what's the event about. Those are all things that would be fields related to an event, whereas a coaching video, you might just want the title of it and a YouTube video embed. That could be it. So you can see why creating different custom post types allows you to separate your content and not just have them all stuck in posts or pages or whatever you're familiar with. This allows you to expand your horizons a bit, create a custom post type for whatever content you want to add, and then give your client a much easier platform, or yourself a much easier platform with which to keep those pieces of content separated. Okay, so we're going to get into that with the custom post type UI plugin. The one thing I did want to show you is it's not super complicated. If you know PHP or you've been dabbling around in template files, this is the generic kind of stuff that you would need in order to build yourself a custom post type of product, in this case, with your functions.php file. So if you're familiar with child themes, or you're familiar with adding PHP code to the functions.php file, or even making your own plugins, this video is probably too simple for you. But if you're just kind of dabbling in that, just know that the custom post type UI is a really friendly graphic GUI, if you will, graphical user interface. Sorry, I can't talk. That does this for us, so we don't have to write code. We have the beauty of being able to use the CPT UI and plugin. So that looks like this. The last little tidbit I did want to say on this is that it's, since I made the video, I'm sure it's been, there's a new version. This is 1.51. I'm sure there's a new one out there by now. But the one thing I did want to highlight is the very bottom right corner, the number of active installs. And this is just kind of a general rule of thumb when you're looking at plugins, because there's a million of them out there, to add to your website. One of the things that I look at is how many people are actually using this thing, how many active installs are there of this plugin. In this case, it's 400,000. So that tells me that there's a bunch of people out there that are using this and like it and are happy with the support they get from Web Dev Studios. So it's well supported. There's 400,000 people that are actively using it. So there's probably a question that I might have has probably been answered already. And there's a strong community behind it typically with that number of installs. If the number of installs is 20 or 30, it could be a very good plugin. You just don't have the people standing behind it that have been testing it and vetting it and making sure they like it. And then the second thing I would mention is the last updated. So again, this is behind a bit, but last updated 5 days ago is much better than 6 months ago or a year ago, because that tells us that the folks at Web Dev Studios are actually producing and updating, not producing, but updating their plugin on a regular basis. 5 days ago is very, very soon. So you know that as long as that's been within like a month or so, maybe 2 months, I don't know, it's kind of up to you to decide, but that at least now you know that that thing's being updated and is being actively worked on. All right, so let's get into it.